Okay, picture this. You're in like a really heated conversation. Maybe it's family, maybe work, maybe just someone cutting you off,
Mm.
and your heart just starts pounding, your face gets hot, and then bam, the words just tumble out.
Wow.
Words you instantly wish you could grab back, actions you'd rewind if you could. That feeling, like you've been totally hijacked by your own emotions.
We've all been there. Definitely. That sudden outburst.
Yeah, that escalating tension feels completely out of control. But what if? What if you could actually hit pause right in that moment? What if you could choose your next step instead of just being yanked around by feelings?
It's a really powerful thought, isn't it? That tiny gap, that split second,
Hmm.
it could change the whole outcome of an interaction or, a whole situation.
Exactly. And that space, that potential pause, that's what we're diving into today. This whole deep dive is about figuring out the critical difference between reacting and responding. We're going to unpack what's happening, in your brain and your body during those trigger moments and explore how you can actually start to gain some control over those emotional responses.
Yeah, and we've looked at some really fascinating stuff from psychology, neuroscience, mindfulness practices,
Yeah.
all sorts of angles.
So the mission here.
Well, the mission for this deep dive is really to get clear on why making that distinction, reacting versus responding, isn't just playing with words. It's actually fundamental to your well-being, your relationships, everything.
Okay.
And we'll explore some practical tools, things derived from these sources to help you start making that shift, moving away from those automatic reactions towards more thoughtful responses.
All right, let's get into it. Let's really unpack this dynamic first. What actually separates reacting from responding? What is reacting?
Okay, so reacting, think instinctive, automatic. It's an action that gets triggered by something, a stimulus, and it happens fast.
Like a reflex.
Pretty much, yeah. Like that gut punch feeling when something startles you, or that sudden urge to just lash out when someone criticizes you. There's very little conscious thought involved, if any, really. It's usually super emotional, and you're definitely not thinking about consequences in that second. It's just go. Your body and mind are just firing off a pre-programmed response.
Okay, so where does that go signal, that immediate urge come from, brain-wise?
Okay, neuroscience time. Reacting is heavily, heavily tied to the amygdala.
The amygdala, right.
Yeah, you can kind of think of it as the brain's primal impulse center, or maybe like a smoke detector. It's operating on this hair trigger because its primary job, evolutionarily speaking, is survival.
Fight or flight.
Exactly. Fight, flight, or even freeze. It's responsible for that ancient, hardwired response system.
Like our ancestors seeing a saber-toothed tiger and needing to react instantly.
Precisely. In that situation, you don't have time for a pros and cons list, right?
Yeah.
You need to run, climb, hide, fight back immediately. Survival depends on it. And our sources use that exact kind of vivid example, the ancient need to react to a tiger versus, say, the modern-day reaction to being cut off in traffic.
Ah, yes, the sudden honking, maybe tailgating. That flash of pure road rage.
Exactly. So our basic reaction machinery, the amygdala's response, hasn't really changed much over millennia.
Yeah.
But the triggers in our modern world, they're usually way less life-threatening than tigers.
Like an annoying email or someone being rude.
Right. But that same automatic amygdala-driven survival response kicks in. And that's where we get into trouble. That's what leads to those escalated tensions, those regrettable outbursts we talked about. The person who cut you off isn't actually a predator, but your brain might momentarily interpret the sudden threat through that ancient survival lens, hitting the same panic button.
Wow. It's kind of wild that the same ancient wiring is trying to handle rush hour or a snippy comment online. But you mentioned gut instinct, too. The sources bring that up in relation to reacting. How does that fit?
Yeah, the gut instinct. This involves the enteric nervous system. People often call it the second brain, located right there in your gut.
Second brain.
Yeah, it's this huge network of neurons lining your digestive tract. It can actually operate pretty independently, but it's also in constant communication with your central nervous system. Interestingly, some studies suggest the gut actually sends more information up to the brain than the brain sends down to the gut.
So it's not just about digesting lunch then. It's actually involved in our feelings and maybe our reactions.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Your gut instinct can fuel reactions that aren't just random. They're based on this subconscious integration of all your past experiences, learned patterns, subtle environmental cues, stuff your conscious mind hasn't even clocked yet.
So it's like deep pattern recognition.
Kind of, yeah. It's like your body has processed a massive amount of data below the radar and is sending up a signal based on that.
Yeah.
Our sources do point out that trusting this gut feeling, especially in tricky situations, can take real courage. And sometimes these intuitive judgments are spot on because they draw on that deep well of experience. But yeah, even gut reactions can sometimes lead to impulsive actions you regret if they aren't filtered through some conscious awareness. It's still a form of reacting if it bypasses that thoughtful pause.
Okay, so reacting.
Right.
Fast, automatic, amygdala-driven, maybe gut signals involved, emotional, not much thought about consequences. Got it. So what about responding? How is that different?
Responding is, well, it's the flip side.
Yeah.
It's fundamentally a conscious choice. It's a deliberate action that you take after you've managed to create even a tiny moment of pause.
Ah, the pause.
That's the key. It requires mindfulness, some self-awareness. You're actually assessing the situation. You're noticing the emotions bubbling up, acknowledging, okay, my amygdala is firing or my gut feels tight, but then you're deciding on a thoughtful course of action, one that aligns maybe with your values or your goals for that interaction rather than just your immediate impulse.
And which part of the brain is handling that decision-making?
That's where the prefrontal cortex steps up. You can think of it as the CEO of the brain.
The CEO.
Yeah. While the amygdala might be screaming, danger, react, or your gut sending urgent signals, the prefrontal cortex is the part that can step back. It's responsible for all that higher order thinking executive functions like planning, impulse control, rational analysis, complex decision-making, and really crucially here, emotional regulation.
So it puts the brakes on the impulse.
It can, yeah. It allows you to consider the bigger picture, the potential outcomes of different actions, your long-term well-being, before you act.
Okay, so sticking with the office analogy, reacting is like the panicked employee yelling, "Fire!" and running for the door just because they smelled burnt toast.
Right.
Well, the prefrontal cortex is the CEO who pauses, checks if it's actually a fire or just toast, considers the evacuation plan, and then calmly directs everyone.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Reacting is quick, instinctive, amygdala-driven, often bypassing those higher brain centers. Responding is measured, thoughtful, facilitated by the prefrontal cortex engaging those centers. One's a hardwired survival mechanism. The other is really a learned skill of conscious navigation.
Okay, that distinction is clear, but why is it so incredibly important to learn to make that shift in our day-to-day lives?
Oh, because it fundamentally changes almost everything. It profoundly influences your interactions, the quality of your relationships, your performance at work, your overall sense of well-being, everything.
How so? Give me that traffic example again.
Okay, traffic scenario. Reacting, honking like crazy, tailgating, maybe yelling something you immediately regret. What does that do?
Escalates things, stresses you out more, risks actual confrontation.
Exactly. It escalates things externally and internally. It ramps up your stress hormones, risks road rage, and ultimately achieves nothing positive. Responding, on the other hand,
Okay.
might look like taking a deliberate deep breath, noticing that surge of anger arise, but not acting on it. Maybe consciously relaxing your grip on the wheel, letting the other driver go, maybe even thinking, okay, they must be rushing, or just, I can't control them, only how I react. You choose to let it go.
Letting it go sounds so simple on paper, but when you're feeling that rage, it feels almost impossible sometimes.
It feels impossible in the heat of the moment, absolutely. But look at the outcome difference. One path keeps you stewing in anger, cortisol pumping, maybe carrying that negativity into your next meeting or when you get home. The other diffuses the situation internally, allows you to move on with a calmer mind. One source actually highlighted this. Beautifully reacting shows our evolutionary roots for survival, but responding, that signifies the evolution of human adaptability and intelligence. It's like a conscious software upgrade we can actually install ourselves.
A conscious upgrade, I like that. But let's be real, while responding sounds great, the reality for a lot of us, maybe most of us sometimes, is that impulsive reacting is a huge problem. It causes real harm.
Absolutely. And that brings us squarely to the negative consequences. When you consistently lack emotional self-regulation, you end up perpetuating those negative emotional states.
Oh.
Well, every time you react impulsively out of anger or frustration, you're essentially reinforcing those neural pathways. You're making it slightly easier, slightly more automatic to react that same way next time. It becomes a habit etched in your brain.
And the social fallout.
Huge, significant social repercussions. Our sources really emphasize how it can severely damage relationships, create constant tension with family, even cost you your job.
Yeah, we had a listener share their story which really brought this home. It highlights exactly how this plays out in real life for so many people.
Yes, it was a very powerful and I think very relatable account from the source material.
Yeah.
This person described a lifelong pattern of overreacting, having big emotional outbursts, being incredibly quick to react.
And the emotions stick around.
Yeah, experiencing negative emotions that just linger for a long time, leading to mood swings, a real sense of instability.
And the impact on their life was just devastating. They mentioned losing jobs specifically because of angry outbursts and panic attacks at work. I mean, think about that. Your reactions directly affecting your ability to earn a living.
It's incredibly serious.
Yeah.
And the family difficulties described were so painful. A dynamic with their dad being emotionally distant, offering only blunt criticism.
Which triggered explosions.
Exactly. Triggering these huge explosions in them, sometimes even escalating to physical things like hitting walls. And the really heartbreaking part, it seemed like the dad only ever kind of acknowledged the conflict or maybe just reacted to the conflict after these huge outbursts happened. Nothing was ever resolved beforehand.
Which accidentally reinforces the idea that only a massive reaction gets any attention.
Tragically, yes.
Yeah.
It creates this awful feedback loop where the outburst, even though destructive, becomes the only perceived way to break through or get any kind of response, even if it's negative attention. It wires the brain to think, this is what I have to do.
Wow. That's a tough cycle.
And then there's the impact on friendships. Cutting people off abruptly after arguments, feeling regret later, but also maybe trying to justify it by thinking the friendships weren't good anyway.
A defense mechanism.
A very common one after impulsive actions fueled by hurt or anger. And underlying all of it was this palpable feeling of being trapped, of being powerless. The source mentioned them saying something like, I just don't know what to do and I'm afraid I can't do anything about it. That feeling of helplessness over your own internal state, it must be incredibly isolating and scary.
It really is, and it points right to this concept called emotional dysregulation.
Right.
This happens when your brain and body interpret emotions or maybe external events in a way that feels completely overwhelming. Your perception of the situation, even if it's maybe not objectively proportionate to the trigger, sets off this cascade of really intense, usually negative feelings.
And then you're just caught in the storm.
Exactly. The emotions start swirling, building on each other, and the immediate, often automatic response is just to do anything to make those awful, overwhelming feelings stop right now.
Survival mode again.
Kind of. But unfortunately, as the sources point out, this scramble for relief often leads to negative or even self-destructive behaviors. These are unhealthy coping mechanisms. Things like substance misuse, self-injury was mentioned, or those impulsive, angry outbursts we've been talking about. They might provide a fleeting sense of relief from the intensity.
But they cause more problems in the long run.
Way more problems. They cause significant harm and actually just perpetuate the cycle. You're essentially reacting to the feeling of your own reaction, trying desperately to shut it down or escape it.
Ah, okay. So it becomes this repeating loop.
Yes. Of a really vicious cycle. The initial trigger leads to an intense emotional reaction. That reaction feels overwhelming and unbearable, so you react to that feeling with an unhealthy coping behavior or another impulsive action. That action then causes negative consequences, guilt, shame, damaged relationships, job loss, which then become the next trigger, starting the whole cycle over again. Breaking free means finding a different way to relate to those intense emotions when they first arise.
And that different way, that's about cultivating the skill of responding.
Precisely. Emotional self-regulation. That ability to manage your emotions, your impulses, and how you behave in response to situations, it's fundamentally a learned skill. This is such a critical point from the sources. It's not some fixed trait you either have or you don't. It develops over time.
It starts really early, doesn't it? Like in childhood.
It does. Ideally, it develops throughout childhood and adolescence, guided by caregivers, teachers, peers who hopefully model healthy responses and help kids process difficult feelings. Think about adults helping young children put words to their feelings. You seem really frustrated because your tower fell down.
Naming it to tame it, kinda.
Exactly. Or helping them understand situations. I know you really want that toy, but it's Sarah's turn right now. That kind of guidance helps children learn to understand their own internal world, to appraise situations more realistically, and gradually make more reasonable choices about their behavior as they grow.
So those early experiences are like laying the foundation, building the basic toolkit for managing your inner life.
They really are. And just like any skill, playing piano, learning Spanish, getting good at coding, it requires regular practice for it to become more automatic, more second nature. You're literally strengthening those new neural pathways in the prefrontal cortex.
Makes sense.
And the sources do mention that for adults who really struggle with self-regulation, maybe because those early lessons were inconsistent or perhaps due to trauma, therapy can be incredibly valuable. It offers a structured way to build self-awareness and develop these skills with expert guidance.
Yeah. That seems logical. If you missed out on some of that foundational learning, or if maybe expressing emotions felt unsafe growing up, you might need some targeted support as an adult to build that capacity.
Exactly. And let's be clear. Feeling strong emotions, joy, sadness, anger, fear, that's all healthy and normal. It's part of being human. The skill isn't about not feeling. It's about learning how to process those emotions effectively and respond appropriately to the situations that trigger them.
So the emotions don't constantly drain you or run your life?
Right. It prevents them from being perpetually overwhelming. It lets you have emotions without your emotions completely having you, if that makes sense.
It does. So the core idea here is really about applying conscious thought to those moments that trigger strong emotions. Noticing when your emotional temperature starts rising, hitting that pause button we talked about.
Yes. Noticing the physical signs, the faster heartbeat, the knot in your stomach, maybe tension in your shoulders. Noticing the mental chatter, the rush of critical thoughts, the urge to blame. Just noticing that surge in emotional response, consciously creating that brief pause, maybe just a breath.
And in that pause.
Considering the potential consequences of different actions you could take right then. And then, crucially, choosing a response.
Choosing one that moves you towards a better outcome or aligns with your values, even if you're still feeling pretty angry or anxious in that moment.
That's the absolute key. It's not about magically making the feeling disappear instantly. It's about choosing your behavior despite the feeling, developing the capacity to tolerate that discomfort for a moment to choose a better path.
Okay, so we get the problem, and we know responding is a skill we can learn. Now, the big question, how do we actually do it? What are the practical strategies and techniques for cultivating these thoughtful responses that the sources talk about?
Right, the how-tos. This is where the sources offer a really rich toolkit, drawing from different approaches, but they all kind of point towards the same goal, building that crucial pause, creating that space between stimulus and action.
Okay, where should we start? Maybe with cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. The sources mentioned it's grounded in that interconnectedness of thoughts, emotions, and behaviors.
Yeah, let's start there. CBT operates on this core principle. How you think about something directly impacts how you feel, which then influences how you act. So the goal is to identify and then modify those unhelpful or inaccurate thought patterns, the ones that feel distress and lead to problematic behaviors like impulsive reactions.
So you're saying the way we think is a major leverage point for changing how we feel and react.
Exactly. It gives you somewhere to intervene besides just trying to wrestle with the raw feeling itself. A key first step in the CBT approach, according to our sources, is identifying your common negative thought patterns. These often involve what are called cognitive distortions. Typical ways our minds twist reality, especially when we're stressed.
Distortions, like what? Give me some examples.
Okay, things like catastrophic thinking, immediately jumping to the absolute worst-case scenario, or overgeneralization, taking one negative event and making it a sweeping rule like, this always happens to me. Or black and white thinking, seeing everything in extremes, good or bad, success or failure, with no room for nuance or middle ground.
Okay, I can see how those would fuel reactivity.
Right. The goal is just to start noticing how these patterns might be operating in your own mind, how they crank up your stress levels and make you more likely to just react without thinking. Awareness is the first step.
And once you're aware of them, challenge them.
Exactly. That's the next critical piece. Challenging and restructuring those thoughts. You learn to pause and ask questions. Is this thought really true? What's the actual evidence for it? Against it? Is there any other way to look at this situation?
Like playing devil's advocate with your own thoughts.
Kind of, yeah. By bringing in alternative, more balanced, more realistic perspectives, you can start to reframe the situation in your mind. And that reframing can significantly dial down the emotional distress that often triggers those automatic reactions.
It sounds like actively questioning the automatic authority of your thoughts.
That's a good way to put it. And CBT also equips you with practical coping strategies for managing distress right when it hits. Things like relaxation techniques, mindfulness exercises, deep breathing stuff we'll definitely dig into more. Having these tools helps lower the physical and emotional intensity when stress spikes.
Okay. What about situations that you just dread, the ones you avoid, because they always trigger intense anxiety or panic?
For those, CBT sometimes uses techniques like exposure and response prevention. It sounds intense, but it's done gradually and safely. It means carefully facing those avoided triggers in a controlled way, without doing your usual reactive or avoidance behavior like fleeing or having an outburst.
So you learn you can handle it.
Exactly. Over time, you can desensitize yourself to the trigger's power. You build resilience and confidence that you can manage the situation differently.
And there was one more CBT element mentioned, behavioral activation.
Right. This focuses on concrete actions. It's about counteracting the inertia, low mood, or stress that can make you more vulnerable to reacting poorly. The idea is to consciously schedule and engage in activities that give you a sense of pleasure, accomplishment, or connection.
Like going for a walk, calling a friend, finishing a small task.
Yeah, things like that. They help lift your mood and energy, making you less likely to be overwhelmed by negative feelings and more capable of choosing those thoughtful responses.
So CBT really offers a whole toolkit, looking at thoughts, behaviors, coping skills to manage stress and reactivity more effectively.
It really does, and the sources highlighted some key benefits. Empowerment, you learn tools you can actually use yourself. It's targeted, tailored to your specific thought patterns. It can lead to pretty swift and lasting changes. It's holistic, looking at the mind-body connection. And potentially, by getting at the roots of the distress, it might even reduce reliance on medication for some people.
That's definitely powerful.
Okay.
Okay, moving beyond CBT, what other specific emotional self-regulation strategies did the sources point to?
Well, one really key strategy is cognitive reappraisal. This is about consciously stepping back from a potentially triggering situation before the intense emotion fully takes hold and actively trying to reinterpret or reframe it in a way that changes its emotional punch.
So deliberately trying to find a different angle on it before you get swept away.
Exactly. A study mentioned in the sources found that people who regularly used cognitive reappraisal tended to experience more positive emotions and fewer negative ones compared to those who didn't. You're actively searching for a less threatening, less personal, or maybe more balanced interpretation. Like, instead of thinking, that driver cut me off on purpose to tick me off, you might consciously reframe it as, wow, they must be really late, or maybe they didn't see me. Annoying, but probably not about me.
Makes sense. Another strategy mentioned was mindfulness. We hear that term everywhere now.
We do, and in this context, mindfulness means deliberately paying attention to what's happening right now. Your thoughts, feelings, body sensations, what you see, what you hear, but doing it with a specific attitude, non-judgmental.
So not trying to stop thoughts or feelings.
No, not at all. It's not about emptying your mind. It's about changing your relationship to your thoughts and feelings. Instead of automatically getting tangled up in them or reacting to every single one, you learn to observe them with a bit of curious distance. That same study found that people who practiced mindfulness reported fewer negative emotions overall.
Interesting. And then there was the strategy the sources explicitly called out as unhealthy, emotion suppression.
Right. This is basically trying to bottle things up, pushing emotions down, hiding them, not expressing them, often because you're afraid of how others will react or what might happen.
And the study found that's bad news.
Yeah. People who consistently suppress their emotions actually experienced fewer positive feelings and more negative feelings in the long run. So pushing it down doesn't make it vanish, it just kind of festers inside.
Pretty much. It can actually lead to more internal stress, anxiety, and psychological pain over time. It's so important to get the difference here. Suppressing emotions, trying to pretend they aren't there, is unhealthy. Observing emotions with non-judgmental awareness, like in mindfulness, is healthy. Mindfulness isn't about bottling up. It's about acknowledging, okay, anger is here or sadness is present without feeling compelled to immediately act on it or force it away. It creates that crucial space.
That's a really critical distinction. Okay, speaking of creating space and not getting swept away, another strategy discussed is emotional detachment. What's that about?
Yeah, and this term can be misunderstood. It's not about becoming cold or uncaring or emotionally numb. It's about cultivating the ability to observe your emotions without getting totally consumed by their intensity and immediacy. It's about gaining perspective. The sources use a great analogy. Think of your emotions like clouds passing through the sky. You are the sky, vast, open, fundamentally unchanging. The clouds, emotions, come and go. They can be stormy, dark, light, fluffy, but they don't define the sky or permanently alter its nature. Seeing emotions this way helps you realize you have emotions. You are not defined by your emotions. They are temporary states passing through your awareness.
That's a helpful image. How do you actually practice that kind of detachment? What are some concrete techniques?
Several practical techniques can help build this perspective in space. Deep breathing is absolutely fundamental. When you get triggered, anxious, angry, scared, your breath automatically gets shallow and fast. That signals danger to your nervous system.
Right.
So consciously shifting to slow, deep breaths, breathing right down into your belly, that sends a calming signal back. It physically calms your nervous system.
Yeah.
And crucially, it creates that essential micropause between the trigger and your automatic reaction. Even just 1 or 2 deep breaths in through the nose, out slowly through the mouth can make a difference.
Okay, deep breathing.
Yeah.
What else? Grounding techniques were mentioned too.
Yes, grounding techniques are designed to pull your focus out of the swirling thoughts or overwhelming emotions in your head and anchor you firmly in the physical present moment. The 5-4-3-2-1 method is a common one.
How does that work?
You intentionally notice 5 things you can see right now, 4 things you can physically touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste or just notice the taste in your mouth. This simple practice yanks your attention back to your immediate sensory experience, grounding you in reality and helping you detach from that internal storm.
Observation without judgment seems core to this detachment idea as well.
It absolutely is. It means mentally taking a step back and observing your emotions almost like a curious scientist studying a phenomenon. Okay, I'm noticing anger arising. I feel heat in my chest. My thoughts are jumping to blame. By doing this, you avoid getting completely tangled in the emotion itself. You create distance, which allows you to evaluate the situation more objectively. You're not judging the feeling as bad. You're just acknowledging its presence.
What about positive self-talk?
This is about actively challenging those automatic negative or anxious thoughts that fuel reactions. Instead of letting thoughts like, "this is a disaster, I can't cope," run rampant, you consciously counter them with something more balanced and empowering. Maybe, okay, this feels really challenging, but I've handled difficult things before. I can take this one step at a time.
It helps shift the internal narrative away from fear and helplessness towards capability.
Setting boundaries came up, too, as a practical way to manage triggers. Absolutely. Yeah. If you know that certain situations, specific people, or even particular types of news consistently trigger really intense, overwhelming reactions in you, it's perfectly okay, and often really wise, to consciously limit your exposure or set clear boundaries around those things. This isn't about unhealthy, fear-driven avoidance. It's a strategic choice to create protective space while you're building your skills to respond differently when you're exposed.
And seeking support, talking things through.
Definitely. Sharing what you're feeling and experiencing with someone you trust, a friend, family member, therapist, can be incredibly helpful. Just verbalizing the intense emotion can sometimes lessen its grip on you. It helps you process it, gain perspective, and reminds you you're not alone in feeling that way.
Mindfulness and meditation keep popping up here again as tools for detachment.
Because the core of these practices is cultivating that present moment awareness without judgment. Regular practice strengthens your ability to observe distressing thoughts and emotions with a calmer, more balanced perspective over time. You're literally building the brain's capacity for conscious observation instead of automatic reaction.
Journaling was listed as well.
Yeah, writing things down can be a really powerful outlet. It gets the swirling thoughts and feelings out of your head and onto paper. That simple act of externalizing them can create mental distance and detachment. Plus, looking back over journal entries can help you identify patterns in your triggers and reactions, which is valuable insight for change.
Visualizing a protective barrier. That sounds interesting.
For some people, yeah. Imagining a kind of clear shield or a calm bubble around them can be a useful mental tool. It can create a sense of psychological safety and distance when feeling bombarded by overwhelming external stuff or intense internal emotions.
And finally, developing a routine. How does that help?
Having a reasonably consistent daily routine provides structure, predictability, and a sense of stability. This can act like an anchor, especially during turbulent times. It can make you feel more grounded and less susceptible to being completely thrown off course by emotional storms. It creates a kind of baseline calm.
Okay, so with detachment, the goal isn't suppression or avoidance. It's about gaining control and perspective. And like responding itself, it's a skill that takes practice using these various techniques.
Exactly. And all these strategies really pave the way for more structured, immersive approaches like mindfulness-based stress reduction or MBSR programs. These offer systematic ways to cultivate these skills more deeply over a period of time.
Great. The MBSR source went into a lot of detail. What's the fundamental definition and purpose there?
Okay, so MBSR defines mindfulness basically as the awareness that comes from paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally to things just as they are. It's really about shifting gears, moving from our default doing mode, always focused on tasks, goals, fixing things, getting somewhere else, to a being mode,
being mode.
Yeah, where you're simply present with your direct experience, whatever it is right now, without immediately trying to change it or judge it. It means intentionally setting aside worries about the future or ruminations about the past, suspending judgment, and just tuning into this moment with openness, curiosity, and acceptance.
And the purpose of cultivating that state.
The purpose isn't necessarily to feel calm all the time, though that can be a byproduct. It's more about learning to see your own habitual patterns, the ways you automatically react, both helpfully and harmfully, without trying to force them to be different right away. It's about approaching your own mind, body, and emotions with curiosity and kindness. By doing that consistently, you start to naturally release yourself from the grip of those old automatic habits, like knee-jerk reactions. You begin to know directly what you're doing while you're doing it. It's a gentle shift from unawareness to awareness, which is what allows you to interrupt those reaction loops.
Okay. Let's walk through some of the core types of practices from the MBSR framework that help build this awareness. Anchoring in the present using the breath seems foundational.
Absolutely. Awareness of breath is often called the gateway practice for a reason. And the key thing here is you're not trying to control your breath or breathe in some special way. You're simply noticing it. Where do you feel the sensation of breathing most clearly? Is it the air at the nostrils, the rise and fall of your chest or belly? Is it shallow or deep right now? The breath just serves as a steady, reliable anchor for your attention in the constantly changing present moment.
And when your mind wanders off, which it definitely does.
Oh, absolutely will. That's just what minds do they think, they plan, they worry, they remember. The practice isn't to stop the mind from wandering. The practice is simply to notice when it has wandered, and then gently, kindly, without criticizing yourself, guide your attention back to the anchor of the breath.
Like gently guiding a puppy back when it gets distracted.
Exactly like that. The source used the analogy of teaching a toddler with patience, kindness, lack of judgment. You wouldn't scold the puppy or the toddler. You just gently redirect. That act of noticing the wandering and gently returning is the core of the practice. You do it again and again.
Then there are shorter practices you can weave into the day, like the 3-minute breathing space.
Yes, this is a fantastic mini practice. It's designed specifically to help you step out of autopilot mode right in the middle of a busy day. It has 3 simple steps. First, awareness. Just pause and check in. What's going on inside me right now? What thoughts are here? What feelings are present? Any noticeable sensations in my body? Just a quick non-judgmental scan.
Okay. Steps.
Step 2, concentrate. Gently narrow your focus just to the sensation of your breathing for maybe a minute or so.
Yeah.
Using the breath as your anchor in this brief pause.
And step 3.
Step 3, expand. Widen your awareness out again, from just the breath to include your whole body. Feel your posture, the sense of your body sitting or standing, the space around you. Then carry this broader, more grounded awareness forward into the next moments of your day.
Like creating a little pocket of presence, a bigger container for whatever you're dealing with.
Precisely. It gives you a chance to step off the hamster wheel, especially if you feel a trigger starting to bubble up, and just reside in awareness for a few moments instead. And there's even a version of this specifically for dealing with difficult situations.
How does that work? Applying the breathing space when you're actively upset or stressed.
Yeah. You deliberately bring the difficult situation or interaction to mind. As you hold it in awareness, you follow the same steps. Notice the thoughts, feelings, and body sensations that arise specifically in relation to that difficulty. The key, again, is just noticing them without getting swept away or needing to fix them immediately. You might consciously breathe into any areas of physical discomfort that come up with the difficult feelings. Then, you expand your awareness to include your whole body and the wider context again. The idea, as the sources suggest, is that this helps you connect with your own inner resources, your wisdom and resilience, allowing you to bring that capacity to the situation instead of just reacting automatically from a place of being overwhelmed or triggered.
Okay. Moving beyond the breath anchor, another really core principle explored in these practices is understanding the nature of our thoughts. You mentioned thoughts are not facts.
This is huge. So fundamental. Our thoughts have immense power over how we feel and react, right? Yeah. But ultimately, they are just mental events. They are fleeting phenomena passing through our minds. They are not necessarily objective reality or undeniable truth that we have to believe or obey without question.
Even though they feel really true and compelling in the moment.
Exactly. Our minds are like thought-generating machines, constantly churning stuff out. One source used the analogy of a TV flipping channels. Whatever channel your mind is tuned to in that moment dictates your perspective, often completely unconsciously.
So the mindfulness practice, using the breath maybe, helps create some distance from those automatic thought channels.
Yes. The breath acts as that neutral anchor you can always return to, grounding you outside the stream of thinking. By bringing your attention back to the simple sensation of breathing, instead of automatically identifying with and getting lost in every single thought that pops into your head, you start to create distance and perspective. You begin to see thoughts more clearly for what they are. Temporary mental constructions passing through awareness, not rigid commands or absolute facts about reality.
The sources mention a cinema screen analogy too.
Yeah, like sitting in a dark cinema, watching an empty screen. Thoughts appear on the screen. You notice what they are. Maybe a worry, a judgment, a memory. You watch them play out, and then they fade, and the screen is empty again until the next thought appears. When you're lost in the movie of your thoughts, it feels totally real. But awareness allows you to step back and see it's just projections on a screen. They can change when you look closer.
How else can you work with difficult or reactive thoughts using these practices?
Several ways are suggested. Simply practicing, watching thoughts arise, noticing their content, and watching them pass away without getting hooked or needing to follow them down the rabbit hole. Deliberately reminding yourself, this is just a thought, not necessarily a fact, especially if it comes with strong emotion. Writing thoughts down can also help, getting them out of your head. And asking challenging questions about your thoughts can undermine their automatic power. Did this just pop up? Does it fit the facts? Evidence against it. Another way to see this. Am I tired or stressed, coloring my view? Am I jumping to conclusions, expecting perfection?
What about those really persistent, harsh thoughts? Like that inner critic that just won't shut up?
Yes, the judging mind. Very common, especially when you start paying attention. The key is recognizing those critical voices as thoughts, not as your true self or objective truth. One helpful technique mentioned is labeling these patterns. Yeah, mentally giving them a name, like, there's the judging mind again, or, okay, that's the worrywart, or, hello, doubting Thomas. Giving the pattern a label helps you see it as a recurring visitor, maybe an unwelcome one, rather than your fundamental reality. It helps you identify the whole package of critical thinking when it shows up and just acknowledge it. Okay, judging mind is here, allowing it to be there and pass through without getting sucked into its negativity or letting it trigger that downward spiral of feeling bad and reacting poorly.
So you're not trying to argue with the critic or wrestle the thoughts into submission?
Not really, no. You're noticing them, recognizing their pattern, maybe labeling them lightly, and then choosing not to follow them or react from them once you're aware they're just thoughts passing through. It's a crucial shift from being completely caught up in the thought to being simply aware of the thought.
Okay, moving from thoughts. Lesson 3 in the source structure focused on befriending feelings. What does that involve?
Well, often thoughts either arise from or are closely linked to underlying feelings. And those feelings, anger, sadness, anxiety, fear, can persist even after the specific thoughts fade. They can be really uncomfortable, really intense. The challenge here, in a core mindfulness practice, is learning how to simply be with these unwanted emotions and the physical sensations that come with them, without automatically reacting by trying to push them away, numb them out, or distract yourself strategies which often just make them stick around longer or pop up somewhere else.
That sounds incredibly difficult. Our gut reaction is usually to get rid of unpleasant feelings as fast as possible.
It is difficult, and that urge to escape or fix it immediately, that's another form of automatic reaction aversion. The practice instead is about bringing a kind of gentle, curious, present awareness directly to the felt experience of the emotion in your body. It involves intentionally connecting your awareness of the breath, your anchor, with the unpleasant feeling or sensation as it's happening.
Like breathing into the feeling, as the sources put it.
Exactly. Intentionally directing your breath, metaphorically speaking, towards the place in your body where you feel that tightness or heat or aching or churning most strongly. Exploring its edges, noticing if it changes in intensity or quality. It's a sharp, dull, pulsing. Just breathing with the sensation. The sources really emphasize that often the awareness itself, simply shining the light of kind, non-judgmental attention onto the feeling without needing it to change, is what allows it to naturally process and shift in its own time.
And the body scan meditation is a key formal practice for developing this capacity.
Yes, it's one of the foundational practices in MBSR. Typically guided, often done lying down, you systematically sweep your attention through your entire body, part by part, maybe starting at your toes and slowly moving all the way up to the top of your head. As you focus on each area, you just notice whatever sensations are present: warmth, coolness, tingling, pressure, tightness, ease, numbness, pain, whatever is there, just noticing it without judgment. When you encounter areas of tension or discomfort, you practice breathing into them, staying present with the raw physical experience, cultivating that tolerance and awareness.
And the sources were refreshingly honest about how challenging this practice can be, right? The obstacles.
Oh, completely. It acknowledges that while it sounds simple, just pay attention to your body.
Yeah.
It can be really hard, especially if you're used to ignoring or disconnecting from body signals. It's super common to feel more pain initially or restlessness, to want to jump up, find it impossible to concentrate, fall asleep, feel anxious or bored or frustrated, think you're doing it wrong, dislike the whole experience, or even have strong emotions like sadness or tears surface as old stuff comes up.
So what's the advice for pushing through those common obstacles?
The key takeaway was simple but profound. You may not always like it, you just need to keep at it. The goal isn't to achieve some perfect state of bliss or relaxation every time. The goal is simply to practice being aware, even when especially when it's difficult or uncomfortable.
That's really reassuring. It's not about instant results. It's about the process of showing up.
Exactly. And recognizing that internal struggle, that judgment, this is boring, I can't do this, that's just more thinking to be aware of. There's no bad meditation, as the saying goes, because simply practicing awareness, showing up for whatever is present in that moment, is the practice. Every time you do it, you're building that muscle of non-judgmental awareness and tolerance for difficulty. And that directly translates into having more capacity to pause and respond thoughtfully when triggers hit in everyday life.
Okay. Beyond these formal practices, the MBSR framework also stresses bringing mindfulness into everyday activities, like Lesson 4, focusing on something we do constantly, often mindlessly, eating.
Yeah, mindless autopilot really governs so much of our lives, and eating is a classic example. We can wolf down entire meals while lost in thought, scrolling social media, watching TV, barely tasting a thing. The practice here is to deliberately bring all your senses to the experience of eating.
Slowing down and paying attention.
Right. Noticing the colors and shapes on your plate, the smells, the textures in your mouth, the subtle layers of flavor unfolding as you chew. It can reveal a whole world you normally miss.
And the sources detailed the raisin exercise as a way to really magnify this point.
Yes, it's a classic. It beautifully demonstrates how much richness is available when we switch off autopilot. You take a single raisin and approach it with total beginner's mind, as if you've never encountered one before.
Step by step.
Yeah. Holding it, really seeing it, the wrinkles, the color variations, the little stem bit, feeling its textures, it's sticky, rough, smooth, smelling its aroma, slowly bringing it to your lips, noticing the intention, placing it in your mouth without chewing right away, just exploring it with your tongue. Then one conscious chew. Notice the burst of flavor, the change in texture. Chew slowly a few more times, noticing the impulse to swallow before you swallow. Then consciously swallowing and even following the sensation down your throat, noticing how your body feels afterwards.
Wow. That's taking something utterly mundane and making it a profound, fully present experience.
It really transforms it. And it highlights how much sensory information is available in any moment if we just pay attention. You can apply the principle, slow down, use all senses, notice urges to any food, any drink, any meal.
Okay. Another way of bringing mindfulness into daily life involves tuning into our reactions to both pleasant and unpleasant experiences throughout the day.
Yes, this practice is about intentionally noticing the details of your internal landscape, body sensations, thoughts, feelings, emotions, as different events happen, both the good stuff and the bad stuff. The sources suggest even briefly jotting down these observations, maybe in a journal or just a quick note.
Like the example used, someone cutting in front of you in line.
Exactly. Instead of just automatically fuming and maybe muttering something, you try to pause, even for a second, and notice. What are the physical sensations? Tight jaw, heat in face, shoulders tense. What are the immediate thoughts? How rude, I should say something. Why does this always happen to me? What are the feelings? Anger, frustration, maybe feeling unseen or small. And then maybe later reflecting. Does this tap into a deeper pattern? When things feel unfair, I tend to freeze up or blame myself. This kind of observation helps you become acutely aware of that chain reaction. Event, sensations, thoughts, feelings, potential automatic reactions.
Do you start to see your own internal cause and effect patterns more clearly?
Precisely. Bringing conscious awareness to those links between external triggers, your internal state, and your habitual reactions is the absolutely essential first step towards gaining the space to choose a different response. You can't change what you're not aware of.
Makes sense. Lesson 6 focused specifically on self-care. How does that fit into reacting versus responding?
Well, how we spend our time and energy hugely impacts our baseline stress levels and overall resilience, which in turn directly affects our capacity to regulate our emotions and respond thoughtfully instead of just reacting when things get tough. We often engage in activities mindlessly without realizing they're actually draining our batteries rather than recharging them.
So the practice is to become more aware of what nourishes versus what depletes you.
Exactly. The suggestion is to bring awareness to your daily activities and maybe even loosely categorize them. Nurturing activities, things that genuinely increase your sense of well-being, joy, peace. Draining activities, things that deplete your energy, leave you feeling stressed or exhausted. And maybe mandatory activities, things that might not feel fun while you're doing them, like paying bills or cleaning the bathroom, but give you a sense of accomplishment afterwards.
And the goal isn't to eliminate all draining activities.
No, that's impossible for most people. The goal is to become aware of them, maybe find ways to bring a little self-care into them if possible, like listening to music while cleaning, and then consciously and mindfully try to increase the genuinely nurturing activities and decrease the draining ones where you actually have some choice or control.
And noticing how those shifts impact your overall well-being and maybe your reactivity levels over time.
Yes. The source has also listed tons of simple, everyday self-care mindfulness tips, things you can weave into your day without needing extra time. Like just noticing your first few breaths when you wake up, checking in with your posture throughout the day, taking deliberate 30-second breath pauses between tasks or before potentially stressful calls, trying to eat one snack mindfully, walking mindfully between meetings, really listening when someone is talking to you, bringing awareness to routine tasks like brushing your teeth, and maybe taking 3 conscious breaths before falling asleep. Tiny moments of awareness and care scattered through the day add up.
Okay. Lesson 7 then dove deeper into more formal meditation practices. Why the need for dedicated formal practice time?
Yeah, while integrating mindfulness into daily life is crucial, the sources emphasize that setting aside specific, dedicated time for formal practice really deepens the skill. It's like daily life mindfulness is staying aware amidst the waves on the surface, while formal practice is like diving down into the calmer, deeper water below those surface disturbances. It helps cultivate a stronger baseline of awareness and stability. The sources suggest this consistent formal practice routine is really at the heart of developing a truly mindful way of living that supports responding skillfully over reacting habitually.
Starting with sitting meditation as a core practice.
Right. Choosing a posture that feels stable, comfortable, but also alert and dignified, usually sitting upright, back naturally straight but not rigid. The primary focus is often the breath, just noticing the sensations of breathing wherever you feel them most clearly, noticing the subtle movements, the rhythm, the pauses, and when the mind inevitably wanders off into thought, planning, remembering, worrying.
Which it will, a lot.
Guaranteed. You simply notice that the mind has wandered, without judgment, and gently, kindly guide your attention back to the anchor of the breath. Again and again. That's the practice.
How do you deal with the physical stuff that comes up, like legs falling asleep, back aching, feeling restless and fidgety?
Good question. The sources suggest a couple of mindful approaches. One option is to mindfully adjust your posture. If you need to move, do it consciously, notice the intention to move, feel the sensations of shifting, and then resettle. The other option, which builds resilience, is to practice being with the discomfort, gently bringing your awareness to the sensation of aching or tightness or restlessness. Breathing with it, exploring its edges and core with curiosity, just observing it without needing it to go away immediately. Practicing staying present with physical discomfort in meditation directly builds your capacity to stay present with difficult emotional discomfort in life without automatically reacting to escape it.
And the mental hurdles, like feeling bored, frustrated, or judging yourself. I'm terrible at this.
Recognizing that's just more thinking. More clouds passing through the sky. The sources are really clear on this. Bad meditation doesn't exist. The only bad session is the one you don't do. Every single time you sit, you are practicing. If your mind is racing, you're practicing awareness of a racing mind. If you feel restless, you're practicing being with restlessness. The key is to trust the process, be kind to yourself, and understand that consistency matters more than achieving some perfect state. Every gentle return of attention to the breath is strengthening that muscle of awareness and choice.
Okay. There was also a practice called loving kindness meditation mentioned. What's the focus there?
This one is quite different. It focuses on actively cultivating feelings and intentions of warmth, kindness, and friendliness, primarily toward yourself, and then extending outwards to others. You typically use simple phrases repeated silently.
Phrases like,
Like, may I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy, or variations on that. You direct these wishes first towards yourself. Then you bring to mind someone you care about easily, a loved one, and send the wishes to them. Then you extend it to a neutral person, someone you don't know well. Then the challenging part, you extend it to someone you have difficulty with. And finally, you broaden it out to encompass all beings everywhere.
So it's like actively training your heart towards compassion and empathy, even for people who trigger you.
That's exactly the intention. It's a practice of intentionally directing warmth and goodwill. And it's okay if you don't feel warm fuzzies right away, especially towards yourself or difficult people. The practice is in setting the intention and sincerely offering the phrases. Imagine the phrases radiating out from your heart space.
Mindful movement meditation was another form mentioned.
Yeah, this involves bringing that same quality of non-judgmental awareness to the experience of your body in motion. This could be gentle stretching, mindful yoga, tai chi, or even just simple movements like slowly rolling your shoulders or stretching your arms overhead. The focus is entirely on the physical sensations, feeling muscles lengthen, joints move, the shift of weight, the connection with the ground. The key is to move with awareness and kindness towards your body without striving to achieve a perfect pose or push past your limits. It's about inhabiting your body fully as you move.
And finally, walking meditation. How does that work?
This can be done formally, setting aside time to walk back and forth slowly in a designated space, or informally, just bringing mindful awareness to your regular walking throughout the day. The practice involves tuning your attention into the physical sensations of walking. Feeling the lifting of one foot, the leg swinging forward, the heel connecting with the ground, the sole rolling through, the weight shifting, the push-off. Noticing the subtle movements in your hips, legs, arms. When your mind wanders, as it will, you gently bring your focus back to the sensations of walking, or perhaps to your breath while walking. The physical rhythm of walking becomes the anchor.
It's really quite amazing how many different avenues there are to cultivate this awareness. The sources often frame these practices within a structured program, like over 8 weeks.
Yes, the standard MBSR program is typically structured over 8 weeks, guiding participants through these practices sequentially. It often starts with recognizing autopilot, then exploring barriers like judgment, incorporating mindful movement, learning to stay present with both pleasant and unpleasant experiences, developing the capacity to turn towards difficulties instead of avoiding them, understanding thoughts are not facts, cultivating compassion and kindness, and finally, figuring out how to maintain a sustainable practice going forward. It shows how these different pieces are designed to build on each other and be integrated into a way of life over time.
Okay, so let's try to bring this all together now. It sounds like all these different techniques and approaches, the insights from CBT about challenging our thoughts, the general emotional regulation strategies like reappraisal and detachment, and this wide array of mindfulness practices, they all ultimately serve the same purpose, to help us build that crucial pause, that space between the trigger and our automatic reaction.
That's exactly it. There are different tools in the toolbox, different pathways up the mountain maybe. But their shared destination is interrupting that automatic chain reaction and creating the possibility for conscious choice. They are all ways of strengthening the prefrontal cortex's ability to step in and moderate the amygdala's knee-jerk response.
And how does building the skill, the pausing, the choosing connect to making more positive or constructive choices in our interactions? One source framed it as enabling you to choose love in your responses. What does that mean in this context?
It's a beautiful way to put it, I think. Cultivating these thoughtful responses is deeply interwoven with some fundamental positive human qualities. It takes courage, the courage to actually pause when everything in you screams react, the courage to sit with discomfort without acting out, the courage to reflect honestly. Gratitude plays a role shifting your baseline mindset away from scarcity or negativity, which often fuels reactivity, towards appreciation, makes you less easily triggered and more inclined towards positive responses. Forgiveness is key. Letting go of resentment and anger towards others, and maybe yourself, frees up so much energy that would otherwise fuel reactions. It allows you to respond from a place of greater peace. And compassion, developing the ability to see the shared human struggles in others, even when their behavior is difficult, enables you to respond with understanding and kindness rather than immediate defensiveness or aggression.
So choosing love over fear, in this sense, means consciously bringing those qualities, courage, gratitude, forgiveness, compassion into your response, instead of letting fear, anger, or insecurity drive the automatic reaction bus.
Exactly. It's about shifting the locus of control inside, as one source put it. rooting your response in these internal strengths and values, rather than letting external events or your own unexamined, fear-based patterns dictate your behavior. It leads to fundamentally healthier, more constructive, and honestly more meaningful interactions with the world and the people in it.
And this is a big, but we've circled back to a few times, this isn't like flipping a switch, right? It's a skill, and skills take work.
Absolutely, 100%. It requires practice, consistent effort, repetition. Just like learning anything complex, whether it's playing guitar or speaking French, you have to be patient with yourself. You have to be kind to yourself. There will be times you slip up, moments when the old reaction pattern just takes over before you even realize it. That's totally normal. It's part of the learning process.
Remember the listener who felt so stuck, afraid they couldn't change?
Yes. And the consistent message across all these sources is that this is changeable. It is learnable. The key is persistence and self-compassion. And celebrating the small wins. Seriously, acknowledge the time you did manage to take that one deep breath before replying. The time you noticed a judgmental thought and didn't get swept away by it. The time you chose a calmer response instead of yelling. Each one of those moments is a victory. Each one is strengthening that responding muscle.
That's a really hopeful and empowering message, I think. You're not fundamentally broken or doomed to repeat harmful reactions forever. You actually have the capacity within you to learn, to grow, and to choose differently.
You absolutely do. It's a journey, for sure. A journey of cultivating awareness, building that all-important pause, and practicing making conscious choices, one moment, one breath, one interaction at a time.
So let's try to summarize this deep dive. We started by understanding reacting that automatic, often amygdala-driven survival response and its serious downsides, impacting our jobs, relationships, well-being, leading to cycles of unhealthy coping.
Right. And then we contrasted that with responding, recognizing it as a powerful, learned skill of emotional self-regulation, facilitated by the thinking part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex.
And we explored a whole arsenal of techniques drawn from CBT, emotional regulation research, and especially mindfulness practices, tools designed to help us build that crucial space between stimulus and response. Things like identifying and challenging thoughts, reframing situations, practicing detachment, anchoring in the breath, observing thoughts and feelings without judgment, bringing awareness to daily life, and formal meditation.
And the core takeaway is that gaining control over our emotional responses isn't about becoming robotic or suppressing feelings. It's about bringing conscious awareness into the process. Noticing what's happening internally without being hijacked by it, considering consequences, and then choosing a response that aligns with our values and goals, even when difficult emotions are present.
Which ultimately leads to better well-being, healthier connections with others, and just navigating the inevitable bumps in life with a bit more grace and effectiveness.
It's really about shifting from being constantly pushed around by our triggers to skillfully choosing how we engage with the world, building that inner space where conscious choice finally becomes possible.
So here's a final thought to mull over. Given that the space between a trigger and your response can potentially be cultivated, even widened, by something as simple as a single conscious breath, how might bringing just one extra conscious breath into a challenging moment today change the course of your very next interaction?
Or maybe ask yourself, if this is a journey, not a destination, well, one small step, maybe just noticing a single thought without judgment, or taking that one conscious breath, will you commit to taking today to move yourself, even slightly, from a reaction towards response?
Lots to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Until next time.